First of all, the question you're asking about united opposition, it would suggest that if the opposition united, they will have more votes than President Museveni.
Right.
I mean, at some stage in Kenya, President Moi was a minority president. I mean, he got minority votes, but he still won because the opposition was split. You remember Ken Matiba and the rest of the candidates. But when you go through the statistics from Uganda, they do not paint that picture. That even if the opposition united, under the circumstances, they would not manage to beat President Museveni. That is why the challenge for Uganda, the way I see it, and the reason why the candidature of Bobi Wine is very critical, is on post-election management as a strategy of creating very strong institutions for the next election. Because when you have a Bobi Wine running, as Ogeka has indicated, then you test the capacity of the institutions to deliver on their mandate. So right now, people can form an opinion on the electoral body, on the military, on the police, and all these other bodies in the electoral process. And that has also happened in Kenya. You keep on testing them every day to make sure that these institutions, at the end of the day, they become stronger than the political personalities that we have in Kenya. That is why the candidature of Mr. Bobi Wine is very critical. And also he's a young man who has identified with the issues, interests, and aspirations of majority of the voters, but he has not been able to crystallize them into a capsule that can deliver a win. And in Africa, and indeed all over the world, for you to become a president, you must make sure that your message, and I speak as an authority on this subject, you make sure your message is both emotional, that you're just getting emotional connection with the voters, and a bit of it rational. When you listen to the campaign of Donald Trump, you would see a mixture of both. Rational, you come up with your manifesto, but as soon as you've delivered your manifesto, then now you go back to the emotional aspects. If your campaign is only going to be anchored on ideas, and on the manifesto alone, then anybody with access to a laptop or a smartphone, you can use now AI to generate a manifesto and you present it. I mean, you'll get very beautiful ideas, but ideas alone will not guarantee a win. You have to win the souls and hearts and minds of the voters. And that is how Bobi Wine is attempting to come up. But again, when you look at President Museveni, because I paid attention at least to their NTV and their national broadcaster, I mean, the gentleman has done so many rallies, almost for the last 1 year. He's visited almost every village. And for them, they do their campaigns in a nice way. He speaks in English, then somebody does a translation. And, he's been identifying people who have been beneficiaries of his economic leadership. He's been giving them flags, they're called flag bearers. Wherever he goes, he gives them flags. But still, people have started asking questions that when you talk about the economics in Uganda, do you become rich or wealthy in Uganda because of political proximity or because of harnessing the factors of production? That is a question that President Museveni has not answered. And given the fact that, Museveni is a thought leader, is an intellectual, anytime when it comes to Kenya and he's speaking about the East African community, the integration process, people get glued. But science suggests that while he speaks very well when he's outside Kenya, but when he's back at home, he's not implemented those ideas. However, Kenyans would be very interested to know that the cost of production in Uganda compared to Kenya is much lower. Like, for instance, Diozia would tell you that the cost of producing, say, eggs in Uganda is much lower than Kenya. Those are some of the things that he has achieved. One would say it's because of that, the entire of Uganda is arable. Kenya, maybe it's not the case. But still, he's been able to create a certain environment. And in my view, for us to make progress, because anybody who is a member of the East African community should have an insurable interest in the elections in Uganda. Because what happens in Uganda affects every Kenyan. What happens in Tanzania affects every Kenyan. They're our neighbor. They're our biggest trading partners. We are joined at the hip. I mean, if you come from Busia, you may not even tell the difference between, a Kenyan in Kenya and a Kenyan in Uganda, because it's the same thing. Because I even understand there's even voter importation around this electoral time. There's some Kenyans who are going to vote in Uganda. I don't know whether that is the case. But that those are statements. So in my view, what President Museveni must do, not because he's the president of Uganda, but because he owes it to all the residents of the East Africa, or rather, all the members of the East African community, is the post-election management. Manage it carefully so that there is no, there's no destruction of property, no lives lost, and then prepare Uganda for an election when he's retiring. Because again, I've had the occasion of speaking to so many